Hey YouTube, so today, April 15th, is tax day. It's also the day where the right-wingers are all out teabagging. They're teabagging to protest the fact that, the government is spending huge amounts on corporations and bailouts and stimulus and whatnot. And of course they're screaming socialist, communist, blah blah blah, not really knowing anything about either of those political ideologies, and really getting it wrong. None of this is really anywhere on the socialist agenda. Socialists obviously don't want big corporate bailouts. They don't want big corporate spending. And I was thinking about it, and I think there's a lot of similarities between the libertarians and the socialists, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, like I said before, socialism is basically an economic theory that wants the government to encourage workers to be in control of the means of production and distribution, removing that out of the hands of corporations and the elite. Miners own the mines, machinists own the factories, shop workers own the shops. Where the similarities between libertarians and socialists starts to become evident is we both start talking about getting corporations and government out of running the local businesses in our communities, schools and banks and transit systems and whatnot, and putting that back in the hands of the people. From there you start to see things like charter schools and credit unions and co-ops, and you start to see less of no-bid contracts for large multinational corporations who are privately held and hire lobbyists to influence our government and get subsidies and tax breaks while they are moving their corporate offices offshore to avoid taxes, and while they're building factories in third world countries to exploit the cheap labor to produce the products that they sell in our local communities, so they can take that money out of our local communities. I think that's a very anti-libertarian idea, and it's also a very anti-socialist idea. What we really want is we want workers to get paid for what they do, right in line with what the socialists or with what the libertarians want. If you work hard, you should be paid for it. If you work hard and you earn extra money for the company, you should be rewarded. Just like if you were a self-employed person, you owned your own business, you work hard and you get the profits of that. If you work for a factory and you work hard and ship an extra couple of units this quarter, you should be rewarded for that. And as a part owner of a company, you would be. That's what the socialists want, and I think it goes right hand in hand with what the libertarians want. What the socialists do want, they want the government to stay out of business and stay out of our lives, except when workers become exploited. That's where the government regulation that socialists want comes in. But other than that, we want to give it all back to the workers. We want to give them those bootstraps to pull on. And if some workers are not doing their share of work, their co-workers, who are all co-owners, are going to see that and get rid of those guys or make them work harder. We still have the free market. We still have competition, but we are keeping individuals from exploiting other individuals. Real socialists don't want government running businesses. It's not effective. It's not efficient. They want people in the community to run the businesses. That keeps the money in the communities, which is what we all want. Like libertarians, socialists are not fans of the way things are working right now. As it is, the federal government is made up of the rich and the elite, who made their money in the industry at the expense of the working class. And when they get into government, they perpetuate the problem by giving tax breaks and favors to their pals who are still in the industry, who are continuing to exploit the working class. As a socialist, I want less money going to the federal government to support those sort of programs, and I want that money staying in my community solving local problems. I think, for the most part, libertarians could agree that that's a good thing to do. Where we start to differ in opinion is where those limits of government should be. I think we all agree that the Constitution is a great, start. It's a great ground level thing. But if you look at it, the founders intended it to be a document that protected the rights of the people. And they intended that it also be a changeable document to address new issues that arose where new instances of worker exploitation are happening, where new, where corporations, where someone comes in and starts exploiting others or taking advantage of others. That's what the government is charged with fixing. What we see is that right after the government, the founding of the U.S., we see that we had the Industrial Revolution, and that's where we start to see the large corporations coming in and exploiting workers. They're concentrating power in a small segment of society, and that small segment of society is then controlling the capital, controlling the wages, and creating an unequal society where the working class doesn't have equal opportunity. I think where socialists and libertarians can agree is that the government right now is in the pockets of the large corporations. We all want to see those favors, those tax breaks, those subsidies go away. We want workers to be able to compete with other workers in a true free market society. I don't think anyone has any contention with that. We just want to make sure that one corporation isn't going to step in and exploit a number of workers and take resources out of a community and make money off of that without giving back to the community in an equal way. I don't think that the workers can compete like they did back at the founding of our country anymore, when corporations are able to move their offices offshore, to avoid taxes and build factories in third world countries. I think that that's an exploitation of the system, and it's federal government's job to go in and fix that. Other than that, I can agree with most libertarians that the government needs to stay out of my life. And I think any libertarian who honestly looks at socialism, will see that those ideas really aren't too far off from their own. Directly off the Socialist Party website, they say that the Socialist Party strives to establish a radical democracy that places people's lives under their own control. That's a very libertarian idea. I feel that socialism is really just an expansion, an evolution of capitalism, where we still have the free market, we still have competition, but we have a system in place that guarantees that workers are not going to be exploited, that the rights of the people are going to be guaranteed. The fear libertarians have, obviously, and justly, is that the government would intrude too much. We already have a system that intrudes too much, and we need to rewrite the system. So while we are rewriting this, let's put in some extra checks and balances to make sure that those intrusions don't happen. And I think if we do that, we can really bring together kind of two sides of the system here. The conservative libertarians who want government out of their lives completely, and the socialists who want the social reforms to protect the workers, but we all want that power returned to us. I think if the likes of Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich come together, we could really take some control back from the Republicans and Democrats and give that power back to the people. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks.